Welcome to another Apollo Papyrus podcast episode. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, my interview guest is the founder of the company Artistic Origins, has written fictional novels, nonfiction books, and screenplays, and has also produced numerous formatted notebooks. Her name is Dawn Greenfield Ireland, and my interview with Dawn will follow the teleportation sound. Dawn Greenfield Ireland, welcome to the Apollo Papyrus podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I really appreciate you wanting to talk with me.
Feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
All right. So for those of you who do not know who I am an author, and I have 20 novels, 5 book series, 7 nonfiction books. Let me think about this now. 52 themed notebooks and 15 screenplays. And my company is Artistic Origins, and it's been around since 1995. And you can find me at degreenfield.com. So that's me from Texas with love.
How did a corporate downsizing at Compaq, which is a company that no longer exists, it was acquired by HP a number of years ago, and HP discontinued the Compaq line of computers. But how did a corporate downsizing at Compaq in the early 1990s lead you to founding your company, Artistic Origins, and what services does your company provide?
Well, the funny thing about being downsized was that, so first of all, they offered people the first package of the layoff. And I hemmed and hawed, thought about it for, a good 2 or 3 days. And then I said, yes, I'll accept that. And the reason was, it's like, well, I was going to be on salary for 1 solid year. I could collect unemployment. And then I can't remember what else, but the benefits were just too great to, turn your back on. And I created my company of Artistic Origins basically so I could contract with them. I had to wait until the year was up, and then I could contract for the exact same group I left. Go figure. A lot of companies do that, and it just makes you scratch your head wondering what the heck the deal is. So my Artistic Origins was at first strictly for my technical writing. And then when I started producing novels and screenplays, I switched it over to my publishing company. And so every single one of my books, and I should say that most of them are award winners, they have been published by my company, Artistic Origins, and I also publish other people's books. The services I provide are editing, formatting, ghostwriting. I can adapt your screenplay into a novel or a novel into a screenplay, and I still offer technical writing services. So, I do it all. People can just, ask me, send me an email or go on my website and ask about something that they're interested in.
I'm going to start with your books by talking about your novels, and you've written a ton of novels in several series.
Yeah.
The Alcott Family Adventures, Thol, Bonded, The Last Dog, and Katz Cat series. And I think there might have even been a standalone novel in there. Without spoiling too much about each of your fictional novel series, what is each series about?
Well, I'll start off with the Thol series. That's Thol. The first book, Prophecy of Thol, was actually called Second Chance back in 1979 when I first started writing it. And that basically came to life while I was daydreaming, driving to work, and it was a very long commute. And so by the second or third day, I had a line tablet and a pen on the passenger seat, and I would, jot things down. So the premise of that, and there's 5 books in the Thol series now, was a teenage girl from Katy, Texas, which is just west of Houston, gets pulled into a parallel world. And it's all new to her, but they've been expecting her for eons of time. And so it's a really great series. It's won a couple of awards, and I adapted part of the first book into a TV series, and that won a couple of awards. So that's the Thol series. And then we have the Hot Chocolate series, which is the Alcott Family Adventures. That's set in Houston, Texas, in the River Oaks area, which is all those giant mansions and all those people. So that's basically about three middle-aged women who are dealing with their 92-year-old father, who is the founder of the Alcott Chocolates company, and they're billionaires. And all the things that they get into with their father, it's really funny. And then we have The Last Dog, which is a dystopian series that is set in 2086. And the prologue is 8 pages long, and it sets up the world completely, even though it is here, Earth, the United States. Things have changed so radically, but some people have emailed me saying, like, wow, some of the things that you have written are kind of like moving into our space right now, things that are happening. So in 2086, just about all the women are sterile. They can't have children. And so dogs are the new children. And there's let's see, in Colorado and then in China, there is a breach of a chemical, and anything that is outside, human or animal, is dead within seconds. And so at that point in time, we are no longer riding on cars on the ground. We have gliders. And so gliders are crashing to the ground, and because people are dead. And it turns out that Abby, a six-week-old puppy belonging to Bill and Teresa Maxwell, is declared the last dog. And of course, the government wants her. So it's a long story about how she's confiscated by the government, and she's still a young puppy, and she doesn't know anything about the wild, but she has to devise a plan how to get out of that lab and make her way to this place called Tex-Mex Zona, which the United States tells you if you go to Tex-Mex Zona, you are revoking your U.S. citizenship. So it's a really good series. And then Bonded is it's my Shapeshifter Billionaire series. And so, I write on in the book, I say, look, you have to be 18 years old to read this because shapeshifters are all about sex and violence. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And then we have Katz Cat, which is a cozy mystery that is set in Twinkle, Texas, which is 385 miles from the closest shopping mall. And it's a small town of 3,000 people. And Jimmy Katz discovers that he's the heir of the Katz Diaz fortune. So it's a very interesting little story because it involves two animals, his little kitten, Maddie, and then his Amazon parrot, Guppy. And then, yes, I have one standalone novel. It's called Forced Dreams. It's a science fiction romance adventure. So that's about it for the novels.
You've also written a ton of, well, actually several nonfiction books. Without spoiling too much of your nonfiction books, how many of them have you written, and what are each of them called and about?
There's only 7 of them. The first one that I wrote, actually, it was the very first book that I published in December of 2000, is a hardcover book called The Puppy Baby Book. Now that's a fill in the blanks baby book for anyone who adopts a puppy, just like an infant baby book, where so you can track the first year of your puppy. And that's been selling since 2000. It won the Independent Publisher Book Awards competition in 2001. And then let's see, what else do we have? Okay, so we have Writer's Preparation Handbook. And this is a tiny book, under 100 pages, and basically helps anyone who wants to write anything get started. And it's from organization to, how to set things up in a Word document. And then I have What's Breaking Your Budget. That is a down-to-earth, almost like, somebody, slapping your wrist, listen, you idiots, this is what you're doing wrong. There's nothing wrong with your life that you can't, take a hold of. If you are into, spending half your salary on dope or hookers or God knows what else, if that's not in your budget, that's why things are bouncing all over the place. And then we have a little book called Puppy Adoption and Beyond. That is a tiny book of 24 articles on how to raise a puppy and a young dog, and even older dogs. It's got some really great articles in there. And then let's see. Oh, how to format Word docs like a pro. I've been using Microsoft Word for decades, and I know all the ins and outs of, how to get things, sorted out, making your documents look absolutely beautiful. So you'll learn how to do styles and all kinds of other things. Trying to think if that's it. Oh, and then Mastering Your Money. I had two versions of Mastering Your Money. The 2008 version won a writer's competition, and I updated it in 2022, and I'm going to be updating it again in 2025 because everything changes. A lot of the links that I have in there for people to do comparisons for what they pay out for rent or groceries and car insurance and things like that. Some of those links have to be updated and the numbers have to be updated as well. So I think that's it.
In addition to your novel and nonfiction writing, you've produced dozens of themed notebooks as well as the Puppy Baby book. What are some themed notebooks that you produced? How are those produced? And what is the Puppy Baby book?
Well, the Puppy Baby book, that's the hardcover book that I was talking about earlier. That's a fill in the blanks baby book for anybody who adopts a puppy. And, it's one of those things where a lot of people consider their dogs their children. And so this is basically the same thing as a baby book. So you fill in all that information. Now, the themed notebooks, every subject that you could possibly think of. Well, first off, I have every single one of the 12 astrological signs, Capricorn, through, Scorpio and all that. But on the blank notebooks, one of the very popular ones is What to Do When a Loved One Dies. Now, these notebooks are blank inside. There's an explanation as to what the book is about and how you should fill it out. And then the pages are either set up so that you fill in, information, or they're blank. It really depends on the different type of notebook. So we've got that one, What to Do When a Loved One Dies, My Daily Accomplishments, a password tracking logbook, my career path, planning, education, skills, and resume book, and then conversations with my cat, my dog, tales of my black cat, conversations with my therapist, breaking bad habits. Now, somebody left me a a really bad review on Amazon for Breaking Bad Habits because this guy was really pissed off because he discovered that the book was blank and he had to fill things in. And, he wrote me back and forth. We just had this argument going. And I told him, I said, read the description on Amazon. And I cut and pasted it and sent it to him. It says right here, you're supposed to fill in the information. So some people have a problem just reading. So there's all kinds of blank notebooks that you can fill in, household inventory, recipes, making quilts, and all kinds of things. And those are on my website, degreenfield.com, under the tab Notebooks. You'll see all of that.
You've written numerous screenplays. Feel free to tell our listeners more about your screenwriting work.
All right. Well, I have a whole bunch. One that has received numerous awards is called The Far Corner. It's a psychological, supernatural sci-fi screenplay. It's been a finalist in, I think, 9 different competitions, a semifinalist several different times. And, it's a big budget, so that's why it hasn't been picked up. Horror scripts are, people basically want, a really cheap way to produce those. This is, like I said, a big budget. And then I have The Godchild, which is an action adventure. It's like, so The Godchild is like The Green Mile meets The Golden Child. Colonel Bastrop suspects 7-year-old Deidre Lyons is God. That's been getting a lot of attention. And then I have a family script called Where's Ralphie? And that's a single dad discovers his daughter's imaginary friend is real, and he's an invisible, highly trained dog fleeing from the government. Then I have Plan B, which is a very dark comedy that I wrote many, many years ago. I think back in the 80s or the 90s. A family's rationality snaps after trying to deal with their out-of-control teenager. They decide it's time for Plan B. Kill the little bastard and get away with it. So then we have Block Captain, which is an action comedy. This script was optioned several years ago, but it wasn't produced because they couldn't raise the money. Basically, it's a suburban husband and wife compete with each other at a self-defense training camp. The second script I ever wrote is called Deadly Traits. It's a crime drama. A crushed red rosebud is left at murder scenes as a vendetta heats up. And then I have The Dishwasher, which is a comedy. Reggie's inheritance has given him a new lease on life. $14.52, a vintage caddy, and the decrepit Blue Lagoon apartment complex. It's a shot at fame, fortune, and fun, or is it trouble, trauma, taxes, and a trip to the slammer?
What motivates you to write?
I have no idea. All I can tell you is what sets me apart from a lot of people is when I have a thought or a daydream, I write it down and I build on it. And a lot of people complain, well, not a lot of people, a lot of writers complain about writer's block, and I have never, ever experienced that. I have file folders with little scraps of paper and actually, sometimes 2 or 3 sheets of paper with ideas for, stories. And, let's face it, I'm probably never going to get around to it because I have so much that I'm working on now as far as writing.
If you have a typical writing routine, what is that like for you?
Oh, gosh. I really don't have a routine any longer. I used to, set aside time, so many hours a day, whether it's morning, noon, or night, or in the middle of the night. And now, since I'm retired from the corporate world, I basically write when I want to write. And what I get done in 1 hour, it takes a lot of people a whole day or maybe even a week.
Normally, I would ask a guest how your books were published, but I'm going to do something differently for this interview because you write in multiple different disciplines of writing. What are some differences between how you approach writing a novel, writing a nonfiction book, and writing a screenplay?
There's really no separate approach. I mean, I get an idea and I start mapping it out. Sometimes I will, you know, uh, handwrite a couple of things down. Sometimes I will just jump in and start the writing, and that's that. I mean, when I come up with an idea for a novel, a script, or nonfiction, uh, it's basically the same thing. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but all I do is just start jotting things down, and if I have a really fantastic idea, then I just sit there and crank out several pages.
My last question, you're from the New Braunfels. Correct me if I mispronounced the name of your hometown.
Oh, it's New Braunfels. It's not where I mean, I've only been here for 4.5 years. I lived in Houston, Texas for 45 years. And then when I was downsized from my last technical writing job, I moved to the East Coast for 4 years. I was up in the Catskill Mountains, and the town was just too tiny. I just could not cope up there. They don't really particularly take to strangers or Southerners very well. So after 4 years, I came back to Texas. But after living in that small town, I decided I do not want to go back to Houston. It's just gigantic. And so I came to what is known as the Texas Hill Country. And I actually wanted to settle in San Marcos, but I could not find a decent house to rent. So I found a house in New Braunfels, which is just down Highway 35. And now I'm considering moving back to the Northeast because of it's getting very, very crowded here. And this part of Texas is having a very difficult time with water supplies. And I just don't want to be here for when there's no longer any water available because of the drought and all that.
And you mentioned some of the problems, particularly in regards to water that the Texas Hill Country is experiencing. But what do you love most about the Texas Hill Country region?
Well, it used to be just absolutely beautiful, a lot of open spaces, but uh, since I've been here, the population has increased, by 50 or 100,000 people coming from California and New York and other places. Uh, so it's no longer that utopia that I thought it would be, or that it was, many years ago when I visited here. It's just getting way too crowded. But there are still some lovely places that you can visit. So, come to the Texas Hill Country and visit while you can, while you have a chance.
Dawn, thank you for appearing on the Apollo Papyrus podcast. You were an amazing guest.
Well, thanks, Aaron. I really appreciate you inviting me.
Dawn has done a lot of work as an author and writer, and it was wonderful to interview her about her work. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to find your writing and reading purpose. Bye for now. Copyright Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited, except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.